In the past 4 days, the Vancouver Canucks have made a handful of small moves, right? Picking up Vitaly Kravtsov, trading away Riley Stillman for Josh Bloom, and trading away Luke Schenn for a third-round pick. And after all of those, I said, good. These are great deals that have no real downside for the Canucks. They make a ton of sense. However, keep in mind that one big move overshadows all of these, right? You can make all these little moves, and if you keep making all these little moves that are good, eventually you will create a good team, right? You do enough things that are net positives, you will eventually have a good team. The key to that was that they can all be overshadowed by one large move that has a negative impact. Now, don't get ahead of yourselves. I'm not saying that this move will inherently be a negative impact on the Vancouver Canucks. What I am saying, though, is this is a big move that a lot of the Canucks' future now hinges on for the most part. So here it is. The Vancouver Canucks have acquired defenseman Filip Hronek and a 2023 fourth from the Detroit Red Wings in exchange for the first-round pick that they got in the Bo Horvat trade and Vancouver's second-round pick in the draft. Let's start off with the easy stuff. That first-round pick that the Vancouver Canucks got in the Bo Horvat trade. That is a first-round pick that is conditional in this season, top 12 protected, and if the New York Islanders do finish above the bottom 12, then that pick would be this year. So that pick could be pick 13, that pick could be pick 17, that pick could be pick 32. For all we know. However, the New York Islanders aren't really seeming to be in the mix so much, especially with how much the Eastern Conference is loading up at the moment. That pick could be, like I said, 13, 14, 15 in what many people are considering to be one of the deepest, best drafts ever, or at least in years. That hurts a little bit, right? You see that and you think, all these moves the Canucks just made to acquire young assets. Josh Bloom, Kravtsov, third-round pick for Luke Schenn, right? For a moment, the Canucks had 7 picks in the first 4 rounds of this upcoming draft, something that they have never, or that would tie a franchise record, and now they're back down to 5 picks in this draft. Now, keep in mind, the Vancouver Canucks do still have a first-round pick in this year's draft, their own, and that one could end up being a very high pick. But 2 is better than 1. So let's talk about now getting rid of that second round pick. I don't care that much about second round picks for the fourth. You drop about 60 spots in the draft on average. It sucks, but whatever. You're probably not going to get a fantastic player with that second round ever. In reality, what the big pieces here are Filip Hronek and that second round pick. Now, or the first round pick. Sorry. Let's talk about Filip Hronek. And let's start with the raw stats. All right. Second round pick in 2016, 53rd overall. Here's why he's so expensive. 25 years old, will be 26 around the start of next season, a 1997 birthday in November. So he'll turn 26 a month into next season, right? Right shot defenseman. Those just don't really grow on trees. They are the most valuable types of defensemen, raising Filip Hronek's value quite a bit. 2018-2019, 23 points in 46 games, half a point per game. 2019-20, 31 points in 65 games, half a point per game. Great. 2020-21, half a point per game. 2021-22, half a point per game, 38 points in 78 games. And this year, he already has 38 points in just 60 games, including tying for his career high with 9 of those being goals. This is also his first season in the plus category. Now, you can look at stats and you can say, okay, right shot defenseman putting up half a point a game all year. That sounds like a really, really valuable piece. The important part to keep in mind, though, is the defensive side, right? This is, as of now, your number 2 defenseman, right? This is your right shot defenseman who puts up 35 to 40 points a year, and this year might put up 50. He's your Quinn Hughes right side guy. The Canucks need that. The Canucks need someone to stand next to Quinn Hughes for the next 5 years. They now have that guy. Let's look analytically. Jay Fresh, with his wins above replacement model that shows percentiles of where a player fits. And by the way, I didn't mention he's making $4.4 million this year and next, and then will be a restricted free agent. So the Canucks will be able to re-sign him, although he will probably be quite expensive to re-sign at that time. So let's take a look at this. WAR percentile timeline in the top right corner. That shows in 2020, 2021, he was an average defenseman, 50th percentile-ish. Last year, he moved up to about 70th percentile, which means he was better than 70% of all defensemen in the NHL. And this year, he has been one of the best defensemen overall, right? That's what, like 95th percentile or so? That's fantastic. Projected to sort of stay around that 90% mark, at least by this model. And then if you look at all of these other percentiles, that's where that number sort of comes through, right? So offensive and defensive, if you look in the graph in the bottom right corner, he's right around 75% percentile offensively, 80th percentile defensively. And those add up, of course, to that like 95%, because most really offensive defensemen aren't very good defensively and vice versa. So he's got a good mix of both. Obviously, this season regressing a little bit because last year he was much lower. We're talking about 60th percentile offensively and 30th percentile defensively, and the year before that even lower. So what's really key for the Canucks right now is Filip Hronek the one that we have seen this season? This 95th percentile guy? Or is he more like what he was last season? You know, that upward trajectory, who knows? Maybe that last season's where he's going to settle in. And that wouldn't be great for the Canucks. You want this elite right shot defenseman. So we will see. All the other stats that add into this, the penalties are a big one, right? He draws a lot more penalties than he takes. That's valuable and plays a big part. Let's also go to Dom Luszczyszyn's player card. I think this is a little out of date. I'm not entirely sure. I think this is from the end of January, so maybe a month old. But either way, it gives us a pretty good... Actually, no, it says 58 games played. This is going to be really recent. Okay. Goals, 89th percentile. Assists, 92nd. Points, 92nd percentile among defensemen. That's great. Of course, we know that. What does matter, though, is the stuff down farther on your page. That offensive and defensive plus minus. This year, minus 6.3 offensive, but his defensive stats are really giving him a bunch of credit at a plus 19 projected for this year. However, last year he was a minus 25.1, which basically means, below average. But this year he's worth about 2.2 wins, which gives him a market value of $8.1 million this year. Again, that's this year, because we look at this chart. If you go back to last year, that's not an $8 million player. That's a $5 million player. So if we are getting the Filip Hronek that he has been this year, then the Canucks probably end up looking pretty good out of this. So that's one thing, right? Just the value for value. First round pick that is probably going to be in the 12 to 15 range this year, or unprotected next year, and could be as high as first overall. Who knows? For Filip Hronek, honestly, value-wise, it makes sense. What doesn't make sense is where this team is right now. This is a team that is near the bottom of the NHL standings. I mean, let's take a look. Let's take a look at the NHL standings here real quick, and I'll zoom in to make this easier. Sorting by points percentage, the Vancouver Canucks are the 6th worst team in hockey. And they have now, they had accumulated some draft picks to ideally be good a few years from now, right? Josh Bloom, 19 years old. Maybe he steps into the lineup in a few years. All these, having some high draft picks, and they still are going to have one high draft pick this year. But, you look at the Dylan Guenther trade a couple of years ago, the Oliver Ekman-Larsson deal. And now you look at this and you're seeing, okay, well, where's the upward trajectory? Because now you have a very good right shot defenseman who will be 26 essentially at the start of next year. So you get what? Maybe 5 good years left of Hronek? Maybe. Sort of the same thought we had with JT Miller on that current contract. Is that JT Miller contract having an impact where they're saying, well, 5 years from now, we're going to have this unmovable contract when JT Miller isn't the player that he is today. So maybe we now have to establish a window. that is about 5 years out. And maybe those draft picks we're just acquiring as currency so that we can do some more with that. That's my fear. My fear is that they're looking at Elias Pettersson and Quinn Hughes and saying, okay, well, they're like 23, 24 years old. We have JT Miller, who's 30. We have, all this other stuff going on. We have Thatcher Demko, who's 26, 27. I think he's 27 years old at this point. We've got to compete within the next couple of years. It's scary. However, they still do have a first round pick. Let's pull up Cap Friendly here to see where their picks are this year. They still have one first. They don't have a second now. They just traded that away. They have 2/3 and 3/4. No fifth, no seventh. So still 3 picks in the first 3 rounds and I guess 6 picks in the first 4. But it's not, it's a little more dreary than it was just yesterday. So we'll see. Is Filip Hronek going to be Filip Hronek? I guess I say Hronek. Is he going to be a true number 2 defenseman to stand alongside Quinn Hughes? Because if that is the case, right shot defensemen have a ton of value in this league. And if he is really good, the Canucks could get 4 or 5 good years out of him. Probably still get, a first in 2029 for him, at that point. So, it feels short-sighted. It feels like it flies in the face of exactly what they've been doing these last 5 days or so, 4 days at this point. But what a swing going from, the Kravtsov deal, the Stillman deal, the Schenn deal, all for futures, and then picking up a 25-year-old defenseman. It is interesting. I still don't know exactly where I land on it. It feels weird, but let me know your thoughts in the comments below. This one I'm really curious about. Do you think this is a good deal, a great deal, a bad short-sighted deal? Where do you land on it? Let me know. Otherwise, looks like trade deadline might be a bit of a snooze on Friday because everything's already happened, but we will see, and I will talk to you in the next one.